Vital men! You know what? It's been way too long. It's been way too long that I've been on a stage with you or had people move things for me like this. So thank you. Thank you very much, Steve and Mike. It's been a journey, men. If you've watched me in the past 4 or 5 months, you may not have seen me very much. You may not have heard from me very much, except for my writing on the devotional page. You could say that Cory has taken a season of rest because I crashed and burned. And you are going to hear about that more tonight. But being in front of you is refreshing. Seeing you all, seeing the smile, seeing and feeling your spirits in this room is renewing to me. And I am just so humbled to be here with you and experience tonight with you. And I hope that you're feeling what I'm feeling already, and that's that spirit stirring and ready to take you to a new spot. And I pray that, and I've been praying this whole time getting ready for this, that tonight isn't just another night that you come to attend. That it's not just another night to listen, but that tonight something happens inside of you that moves you to a place that you've never been before. Because I tell you what, my past year has been exactly that. There's been so much happening inside of me and in my life that's brought me to a place that I'd never been before. This month is Blurry Jesus, okay? If you guys saw the opening video that Kyle and I did, just give Kyle a round of applause for that, right? I just sit in a chair and say some things, and he pieces it all together, right? That is not possible without him. So that video is just, it's a precipice, it's a piece for us to go off of for this month. And so you guys we'll look it up later. You can look it online. If you're watching on the internet, you can see the link in the description below. But Blurry Jesus, it happens so often that we think we know who Jesus is. We think we understand Jesus, and all of a sudden, we just get this fuzzy picture. And that brings us to tonight's message, which is going to be about blurry understanding. And exactly what it says there. What do we see when we are in the midst of catastrophe? Catastrophe. Those moments of just danger and disaster where our lives are just ripped to shreds. And here's a question I want to ask you tonight, just to start. So much of us, if we would tell our story, what in that is the moments that define you? If you would turn to the person next to you, if you would tonight, and tell them your personal story, all open and real, all vulnerability on the table, and tell them your story, what would be the defining moments of that? Man, I tell you what, we wish it could be full of these successes. Man, it's when I got my first job and had my first kid and I made my first million and I got this car and we think that's so much of our story so often. But if you get down to the nitty gritty, if you get to the moments that define you, that change you, it is the catastrophe of your life. And it's in those moments that Jesus is blurry. Man, we wish he would make sense when the world is ending. We wish he would make sense when the world is shifting in such a way that we are being torn apart one side and the other. But it's in those moments we struggle the most to see a clear picture of Jesus. And men, that's where we're going tonight. And those catastrophes, that's the whole historical thing. Okay, if you look at any history book, they were talking about that Bible tonight that has the whole United States history linked into it, and that's awesome. But guess what? The only reason we have history is because catastrophes have happened. Man, we can have our successes. Oh, we won the world wars. It's fantastic. We can celebrate that. But it only happened because something else bad happened first. And that's what defines us. But here's the little flip for you. There's a guy out there who wants to make Jesus blurry. And that's the devil. And that's why he attacks your focus, and that's why he brings confusion to your life. In those moments where you're saying, why, God? What happened? How am I here? What's going on? It's the devil bringing you to that place to make you suffer, to make you confused, to make you to such a point where you go, I don't know if I believe in Jesus anymore. And that's blurry, man. That's confusing. But here's the truth. Sometimes the blurriest ugliest things that happen to us are the most beautiful twists in our stories. Only, but only if we give it a chance to transform us. Men, there's a line. There's a line where we bring our burdens and our sorrows, and we, as men of pride and of character, we get to that line and we go, okay, the world is on my shoulders, so much has happened, and I want to handle it, I want to do what I want, but across that line is me being free of the burden, giving it to Jesus, and just surrendering. But so often we're stuck here on this side of the line, carrying it ourselves. And when we do that, when we keep it for ourselves, we're not able to transform. We're not able to change. Let me give you a little example. When I was a kid, my mom had this milkweed in the back garden. And she would always make us go out in the summer months and take that milkweed and the little caterpillars around, the monarch caterpillars. And she just thought it was the sweetest thing. We'd put them in jars and we'd watch them transform and eat all the milkweed. And then all of a sudden they'd go into this cocoon. And then eventually they'd turn into a butterfly. But that process has always amazed me, this caterpillar, this worm, mushy, gushy, juicy worm, turning into this beautiful flying insect. And so I started studying it a little bit, okay? And here's something that they say. That transformation for the caterpillar, almost everything while in that cocoon is massively reorganized in the pupa. Yeah, weird word, pupa. I laughed a lot when I said that. So I was like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'm like, pupa. That's legal on this stage, I'll tell you what, Hey, Mom, I'm going to go check the pupa. Mom, something's stuck in the pupa. It's a fantastic word, but that's what it is. It's basically the little sobby mess of this caterpillar, right? So they say almost everything is massively reorganized. And I studied even more, and it's actually amazing how in this 14, 15-day process, this caterpillar goes from having this juicy center to getting this exoskeleton, becoming stiff. It actually takes 50 cells and multiplies them to 50,000 to create wings. It puts a whole new breathing apparatus in it, and it constructs itself. It reorganizes. It's so cool, but they also say this about it, that if the cocoon is not prepared correctly, the transformation fails and life is not an option. They die. If the cocoon, this center where all this transformation isn't happening and where that pupa is, if it doesn't happen, they get to this line, and if they don't handle it and reorganize correctly, they can't cross it and become a transformed being. They are stuck in death. And they say that a caterpillar almost becomes a soup inside that cocoon. It's like a mushy, choppy soup, and then it reconstructs itself. Man, I don't know about you, but I have been at points in my life where I am a choppy, messy, dirty, ugly pupa piece of soup. And if I don't handle it correctly, I don't transform. If you don't handle it correctly, you don't transform. Let me give you a biblical example. I've just been amazed with this guy named Elijah. Okay? And I'm going to kind of run through this and give you this story of Elijah. So Elijah, if you look at the Bible, he just pops out of nowhere. He really does. We don't know where he comes from, whatever. And it's like, boop, there's Elijah, and he's this awesome prophet, right? He kind of goes through this thing, kind of finding himself a little bit in the desert. It's a dry time. The drought's there. And all of a sudden, it's time for him to step up and perform. And so God calls him, and he goes out and he calls the Baal prophets and the other pagan prophets. And he says, let's go to Mount Carmel, you versus me. Whose God is the best? And so they go up on top of this mountain. You might know the story. And they start building their altar and their sacrifice, both of them. And then Elijah's basically like, hey guys, just show me what you got. You pray to Baal for him to rain down fire and quench or even just start a fire on this sacrifice. And so 850 prophets start dancing around, doing their thing. They end up cutting themselves. They go from 8 in the morning till noon and nothing happens. And even the fact of it, Elijah's sitting there, he's just taunting them like, hey, come on, you guys can do a better dance than that. Man, let's go. You can make this happen. Nothing. So Elijah goes, all right, enough of this foolishness. Let me show you how it's done. And he says it takes and just piles jars of water and quenches it in water so much that it almost seemed impossible for it ever to be lit on fire. And all the people are like, oh, no, he didn't. There's no way. And Elijah goes in front of God and he says, God, show them Show them that you are the God of gods. And whew, in a second, fire rains down, quenches that sacrifice and the other one, and all the Baal prophets' jaws drop, and they're like, and all the people go, Jehovah is God, Elijah's God is God, Baal is nothing. And in that moment, Elijah is on top of the world. He sends people to go kill all 850 pagan prophets. And then the rain comes. So after 3 years, God had prophesied through Elijah it would come in a time when he says, the rain comes, the sacrifice is quenched, Elijah is on top of the world. And in a matter of a twisting of a moment, he hears from Queen Jezebel, that wicked witch of a queen. And she goes, I would be surprised, Elijah, if you are not dead by tomorrow. And Elijah, all of a sudden, after being on top of the world, becomes a scared little boy and runs. And he runs so fast and so far that he gets to a place where he sits underneath the broom tree, and it says that right there. He goes, I have had enough. Just take my life. How does Elijah go from being on top of a mountain where he conquers this Baal god with no confrontation? It's just him and God, and it's quenched. God has fulfilled a prophecy. The fire rained down, and he is on top of the world. And at the word of one woman, he runs and flees into depression at the time and point where he could just die. Jesus and God go from being a focused person, everything made sense, to a time where Elijah doesn't even want to live anymore. That contrast is blurriness, men. And it happens so quickly. But it's interesting again. It's interesting again that at the bottom of the pit, in the midst of his depression, God shows up. And it's amazing how God shows himself in the biggest ways at our lowest points. And God comes to Elijah and he says, Elijah, I'm going to show myself to you. Step out. So Elijah steps out, and this amazing fire falls, and nothing. And the biggest earthquake in the world rumbles, and nothing. And the largest wind rushes past, and nothing. And then God comes in a whisper and he says, Elijah, here I am. In the midst of catastrophe, we often don't hear that whisper because we are caught up in what the world is saying, and we forget about what God is doing. We don't take the time to listen. We don't take the time to center ourselves. We get lost in the noise and in the catastrophe, and Jesus is this blurry person that we no longer trust or understand or can give any of ourselves to. And men, it's in that moment we need him the most. That's when we need him to be the clearest, and yet we have some twist in us, some lack of transformation, some prideful part of ourselves that says, no, God, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to submit and give myself and let you take care of this. I'm going to do it on my own. And we've all been there, men. I truly, truly believe that. And again, we said this in the video, but how we view Jesus is the lens of which we see the world. When catastrophes happen, people, man, I know you've been there. I've been through this too. There's things that happen in the church. There's things that Christians do that really make Jesus kind of offset for you. You go, you know what? I'm not a big Jesus guy. I'm not a big religion guy because something happened to me within that realm. And often that changes that lens of how we see Jesus. But I'm telling you, how you see Jesus up here is how you see Jesus out there. Here's some examples. If you see Jesus as this person who has rules and you have to follow them, well, guess what life turns into? It's just you breaking the rules, right? I'm a kid. All my parents told me I did the opposite. Don't throw my brother off the deck. I threw my brother off the deck. That's what you do. If you think Jesus is just some boring routine, there's nothing fun about Jesus. He's just, you pray and you read the Bible and you just do what you do, well then guess what? You're going to have a really lazy life all around. If you think Jesus is just confusing, you don't understand him, he's too complex, he doesn't make sense how he can be 3 in 1 and all those mysterious things, well then you're going to lack purpose. All of a sudden, because you're so caught up in how confusing he is, you're not going to have any purpose or passion or drive for your life. And here's the biggest one. If you think Jesus is the reason that you suffer, if you think he's the reason you have a catastrophe, then you will hate the world and the people in it. And you will be an angry, angry, angry person. There's one thing that we can ask that will refocus any catastrophic moment. And I really hope that you leave with this tonight and you apply it to your life, because this has saved me. It's asking this: God, what do you want me to learn from this? Because when you ask that question, you go from this blurry Jesus that makes no sense, this blurry moment of tragedy and suffering, and you take that question and it hones you in to one view with God in this world. Just like the cross, you're with God in this world. Up above and down below, in the midst of what we live in. In that moment, you ask that question: God, what do you want me to learn from this? And it zones you in. And once you ask that, transformation can start. You allow Jesus to work in your life. Because here's the truth. If we don't discover the meaning of Jesus, and if we aren't willing to work through it, we are going to leave that situation blurry for the rest of our lives. Because so much of who we are lays in the rubble, the devastation and the disaster of our lives. That's who we are. And because we don't want to sift through it, we don't want to work through it, we never become our greatest selves. Because we want to stand behind that line and just kind of ignore that it exists. We don't want to touch it. We're just put in the corner. I can't become my greatest self because I hang on to it. But we have to take the time to work through it, to touch it, to move it. Guys, I want to be really, really real. And I'm going to tell you 3 stories about my life in this past year and a little longer. So go there with me. Go back to 2010, 5 years ago. I had dropped out of college. Still gives my mother anxiety, right? I dropped out of college, went to Australia to do mission work. And while I was there, my father had transitioned out of one job and couldn't get another. And for a long time, my dad struggled trying to find a job. And here I am in Australia, and all we can do is email back and forth maybe every 2 weeks. And he's just pouring his heart out to me. Cory, I'm trying. I'm trying to support the family. I'm trying to find this job. I've applied everywhere. I'm doing all these side jobs of what I can. I'm trying to make it happen. But Cory, I don't get why Jesus is doing this. I had such a successful career, and I have so many skills, and I've lost purpose and passion and drive, and I don't know why I'm here or what's supposed to happen. And Jesus, for me and for my father and our family in that time, was really blurry. God, I don't get it. Why take from us something that we had? Why put us through this? I don't get it. Fast forward to now, if you would ask him what he learned in those moments, he'd be able to tell you. And now, praise the Lord, with Vermeer Manufacturing, he has a fantastic job that he loves and that he's great at. Seasons change. Go back with me again to about 4 months ago. I told you there's a reason I haven't been on a stage in a while. This is the first time that I've spoke more than 5 minutes in front of a crowd for 4 months. I used to do it 4 times a week. 4 months ago, I hit my rock bottom. I was emotionally dead. I was spiritually traumatized. I had ran so hard and so fast that I hit a wall and I got knocked out. And that lowest point for me was depression. And I never, ever thought Cory Nikkel would ever be depressed. Ever. And here I am on my back like this broken insect that can't get back up, wallowing in my sorrows. And at that lowest point, I remember I just cried my eyes out in my father's shoulder. And they were so worried about me and so concerned, and I didn't want to see the daylight of tomorrow, that my mother drove an hour and a half to come sleep next to my side that night. And I'm a 25-year-old man. And I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop thinking about how I just don't want to get out of bed ever again. It was years of just going too hard and of not feeling myself when I should have, that brought me to that point. And man, it was dark. I didn't want to move. I didn't have passion to write, to speak, to go to school and teach, to coach. I didn't have passion to even get on a stage to talk to men about Jesus. I had no passion for Jesus whatsoever. And it was in that moment, Jesus was the blurriest for me, man. I remember wrestling with him saying, God, how could you put me here? I have helped men walk through depression numerous times. Everything that everyone's telling me, I have told people, how did I end up here? I ended up writing an article that was titled, Why I Always Come Back to Jesus Even When I Don't Want to. Because, man, I didn't want to. I wanted to be done with Vital Ministries. I wanted to be done with speaking. I wanted to be done with Jesus. But the premise of that article was, there's only one person in this world who will love me, who will take me and hold me no matter what I do. Only one person in this world who accepts me as flawed as I am. Only one. As much as I want to reject that, there's only one person who I am attracted to, and that is God. Man, Jesus was so blurry. Let me take you forward just a little bit. Last story. You guys have read some of my blogs and devotions lately about my Monty mom, who's now dancing with Jesus. I'm working through depression. And she's the one that got me going. She's the one that gave me a spark again. And then I slowly watch someone die from cancer who doesn't deserve to die, who is the happiest, most loving, sincere person I've ever met in my life, who has changed so many lives and touched so many people, and I watch her die. Jesus, how could you? It's so blurry. And in the midst of it, I watch a man, my Monty dad, who never falters. And I'm struggling with Jesus, saying, Jesus, well, how dare you? How dare you add one more thing? How do you do this to me in this moment? And then I watch a man walk with his wife and love her so dearly and so strongly. And he's so faithful to Jesus. And he says, whether she dies or whether she lives, we win. And Jesus was blurry for him then. He's still a little blurry now. But men, catastrophe brings blurriness. I'm here to tell you that number one, that's okay. But number two, it's our job to work through that. Because if we don't, we have just slapped Jesus in the face. You all have blurry moments. You all have the lowest of lows. And you have your highs. And you have moments coming. And you have moments now where Jesus doesn't make sense. And it's in those moments we like the quick fixes. We like to go to pornography. We like to look at other women. We like to put our pride in our work and our hobbies in it. We like to put stuff in it so we don't have to deal with figuring out Jesus. But it's in those moments that we are at that fine line and he's saying to us, you got to give it to me. You've got to focus on me. Quit letting the devil distract you from focusing on me and get your life straight. I don't care, he says. I don't care what this world brings you because my eternal perspective makes sense. It has a story and a message that is so powerful for your life, and all you got to do is just give it to me. And man, here's the story. Here is why we are Christians. Here's why we believe in Jesus Christ. Because he said at the beginning of time, Father God, I will go to earth. I will go there and I will suffer the hardest death so that they may have my life in order to live forever with you. I will go and give everything. I will submit myself to them so that they may live forever. And then here we are, these pathetic, selfish, prideful people who sit there saying, I'm not ready to give it all. God, I don't want to give it up. You're blurry, and I don't care. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to give up on you, Jesus. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to do it my way, my way, my way, and it's me. And here's Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one understands that life unless they come to me, unless they come to me. And here we are on that line, back behind it, doing our own thing, struggling our own struggles, unwilling to submit. And we are sitting there, we are just strangling, man. We are just strangling life on our own. And we're saying, it's my life, and I'm going to do it my way. And if I want to take time to do it, then I'm going to do it. And we strangle life with all our hold. And all Jesus wants us to do is let go. I've been depressed. I've lost people I love. I have been at the lows of lows. And the more that I strangle and hold on for myself, the more I am destroyed. But I find life in letting go. I find clarity in letting go. I find hope in finding Jesus in the blurriest of moments. The message is so simple, but the action in it is so hard. It's about this. It's not if, but when it's going to happen. Are you prepared for when it's going to happen? It's not if it's going to, because it's gonna. Because that devil guy, he is active, and he is going hard, and he is ready to come and get you at any single moment. And it's not if it happens, it's when. And when it happens, are you willing to focus on Jesus? Because here's what happens in this time. Here's what happens. God's answer to trouble is trust. Trust me. Trust me that when you're dangling out over that stage and you're just going to let go, that you will be captured by my love. And then that is the hardest part, is to let go. Just to say, Jesus, I am going to let you do this. And what he wants us to answer to in fear, in those catastrophic moments where we are just demolished, when we are so fearful for what's next or how we're going to make it through, what he wants for us is to have faith. Even if you have faith as a mustard seed, the smallest of things, that you would have faith in those moments that he would move the mountains for you, that he would take you as some sort of caterpillar that's being transformed and going through the pupa and bring you to a place where you are just some beautiful, beautiful product. As the praise team comes up, I want to give you this verse. I took Psalms and I combined a bunch of these. And it says this. It says, this is all scripture here. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Trouble and anguish have overtaken me, yet your commandments are my delights. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you will revive me. If you want to look at one man who saw a blurry Jesus a lot, it's King David, all throughout the Psalms. And he says, though I walk in the midst of trouble, you will revive me. And men, we have a God that comes before us and he says, look how wide and how deep and how high and how long is my love for you. And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Men, our way is not the way. Our longings are not the right ones. I know we want to keep people in our lives. I know I don't want to be depressed. I know I don't want to have struggles. But men, he's saying in those moments, In those moments, I'm telling you, there's life to come. There's a reason for it. There's something in the future. There is hope for you. And all you've got to do is let go and let those burdens fly from you and cross that line and say, here I am. I've come as I am. I'm flawed and I'm messy and I don't understand, but Jesus, I'm right here and I'm saying, what do you want me to learn from this? God, what do you want me to learn? And sometimes it's going to come in tears. And sometimes it's going to come in anger. But he's just waiting. He's just waiting, men. He's waiting for this exact night that you would walk into this place and not just sit here, but you would react. Not just listen, but that you would do. You would do something. Man, I spent 3 years of my life just listening and just acting. And finally, I was forced into a place where I had to go, God, here I am. What do you want me to learn? I hope you're at that place tonight. You know, the crazy thing about those caterpillars, scientists suggest that they actually remember the process of pupa that they went through. And they know what they were before, but man, do they enjoy what they were after. That's you and me. So come as you are, right now in this moment. Whatever you got, let's bring it to God. And let's focus a blurry Jesus.